Something I thought about yesterday after the live stream was the syntax for some of these statements. And I did a little poll this morning, not necessarily a crazy amount of votes, maybe about 100 when all's said and done. But the point was is that, originally I had a lot of these controller statements as, sentence format. Um, but I'm feeling like the colon key value pair is a little bit cleaner. And it seems like most people agree with me on that. It also made things a bit easier to parse. So I started changing all that. So maybe that's something we can look at here in just a second. So let me go back, and I was tinkering with this kind of quickly, didn't get it all done before the live stream, but we are in a passing state. So let me go back and demonstrate kind of this syntax change. So before, I had like render post index with space posts. But I kind of this syntax here is pretty universal. Like I pretty much use that anywhere else. So if I'm going to send a email notification or a mailable, it's going to go to something and then again with certain bits of data. So it would be kind of nice to see, all this kind of set up that same way. So I made this universal. I went back and updated the test to pass, updated it in the README, and now it's time to go and tweak those statement lexers to respect that colon syntax. So really just kind of have to parse it out, yet again, so to speak. So let's do that just real fast. And yeah, so if you have a different opinion, feel free to reply to this. Don't just cast a vote. Reply and give me some reasoning. More than welcome to send that away. But I think for the most part, I've landed on this colon syntax. So let's go back to the statement lexer test and the statement lexer itself. And I'm going to close this side window. And let's just kind of tweak this as well, because it's the only place where the syntax really matters. So let me find any widths. And there we go. And let's just get all these failing. We'll get them all passing, and then we'll move on to the generators the way I talked about in that tweet. Because I think there's more statements to build, but there's enough today to kind of switch gears and focus on the generation, try to start to get into some of the cool stuff. So that's what I want to do today. So let's just fix all these, and then also this 2, which is probably only in a few spots. So I went ahead and added a bunch of different statements. So let's just take a look at those. So there's a dispatch statement, an event statement, a mail statement, a query statement, a render statement. So kind of going back to that README example, what we have left would be validate, save, flash, and redirect, which I think I was getting ready to work on. So oh, and query, of course, the major one. So query is in here, but it's not really tested or done yet. So I'm going to continue to work on those on my own. We might kick out validate just to jump ahead with the generators, but you get the idea. So we changed all that. Let's watch this run and fail. Good. So it's just parsing a little bit odd now. So it's getting things like with foo instead of what it expects. So let's go in and tweak this preg split a little bit. So I broke this out just a little bit, and I think there's going to be more refactors that are possible, but basically we can start to see this switch statement take place, and it's really just calling private analyze methods with the statement. So ultimately I can probably just do this in a very dynamic way and say, look, does a method exist for like the capitalized version or the uppercase version of like this or no, capitalize is correct, sorry, the capitalized version of the command. If so, call it, and that's the statement. Otherwise, we can assume it's query or something like that. So going to be pretty easy to kind of work with this here eventually. So all that stuff is in parse with statement. Now there's no longer a variables. Instead, I'm going to call this with. And what I need to do is basically say, let's default the data, and we can basically say something like if not empty, or well, we already have it. If not empty with, then we can parse out. We really just want that like last bit of that syntax. So like I could do something just really really ugly here and basically say something like trim the width and just do like a substring. Or there's really no even reason to trim it because it should never, by like the laws of YAML, it should never be that way. So I really just want the substring after width. So the string is going to be the width statement. The length would be 5, and take it all the way to the end. And I think that should work, right? So width and then the colon is 5 characters. That should start at index 5. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, we're still getting a width here, and foobar baz is a bit wrong. So how many failed before? We had 5 failures before, and now 4, so it seems a little bit closer. Object data statement, that should be good, and I no longer want to do 3. Let's just do 2. And there we go. Now we're down to our post author. So this is the mailable one, which had its own little special syntax. So we can do the same thing here and say width, and we'll change the 2, and we'll change this to 3, and we'll kind of just do the same thing we did before. So we'll just cut out width, and I may abstract these later. In this case, the width is fine, data's fine, and then 2 is going to need to be done as well. So basically, if not empty 2, then 2 is really just going to get substringed to chop off the 2. I don't really like the way this communicates that well. Like it doesn't really communicate that well. Like this is kind of a magic number. You know, I think I've seen some people do something like string count, or where is it? String count? String word count? Substring count? What is? Oh, string length. Duh. And then they do something like this, where it's like 2. So it just communicates a little bit better, like what I'm doing. But I think for a private method, it should be okay. So let's see where we get. Good, we're back to passing. Okay, so new syntax accepted. I heard some chats come across. Let's see what's going on. Audio sounds good. Oh, okay. Maybe it's just people joining. Awesome. Okay, so we cleaned up this syntax now to support this new kind of colonized syntax. And again, by the laws of YAML, like if I change this, it's invalid YAML syntax, right? So you have to have it close together as key value pairs separated by the colon. Now, what's interesting is I don't know if I can do something like that. It seems like I can based on the tests. So there's no reason to like quote these or anything. So I think that's good. But again, I don't think I could get away with having a space there. So I'm not going to worry about that. Oops. Okay, so we're all passing. Now, today, I want to switch gears and work on the generation. And I think for the generation today, maybe we'll start with something really simple, like generating a form request, generating like a mailable, and things of that nature based on, do I see these like other things? So, so for example, if I have a validate command or a validate statement, then I would know, okay, is there already a validator for this like controller action? If so, use it. If not, create it, and set up the rules for it. So I think that'd be pretty cool, but I don't think I have the statement or the validate statement. So let's drive that out real fast so we can move on to these generators. So validate, let's copy this, and we'll say it returns a validate statement. We'll change this to validate, and I'll go ahead and generate that here in just a sec, but let's drive this out just a bit more. So if the syntax here is if I say validate, it basically just takes a list of items. So it would say something like, whoops, title, and author, ID, and like post or something like that, or content maybe. Like all these things have to come in. Now, eventually, when we generate this stuff, we're going to be smart enough to look at the model definitions and say, okay, title is a string of 400 characters, content's a long text, so it's going to be required. Author ID, we could parse this out and say, oh, look, you got to be, exist in the authors table. So it's going to be pretty cool to generate all this. So I think this will be like a fun one to start with today. So what we're going to say down here is assert equals, and this should have data. But I think what I'd rather say here is like fields, maybe? Columns? I'm just trying to think of the right word. I guess we're validating request data, so that's fine. Let's stick with the data format. And in this case, you should never be empty. You should never be empty. That would be invalid YAML syntax. So you could never pass validate with nothing. So I think we're okay. We don't need a test for that. So what we're going to want to see here is title and author ID and content. I think this is okay. I was thinking that I might need to know the context of like the controller or what this is, but I'm already going to know that in the generator because I'm going to be generating it for a controller action. So I'm already going to have that context from other places. So there's no reason for me to like store the context or the object here. And maybe if things get super complicated, like eventually I could support some kind of like dot notation, so you could change the context if you wanted. So anyways, I think this is good enough. Let's get this passing, and I'll make a commit, and then we'll start on the generators. So failed asserting that actual size. Okay, so we definitely didn't validate that. That's kind of interesting that it didn't throw an error for that class, but I guess it just didn't get that far. So let's have it get that far. And we'll just make yet another one of these, and I'll do some refactoring tonight, I think. So let's call this validate. It's going to analyze a validate statement. It's going to pass at the statement. Let's add this method, and let's not put anything else in here right now. Let's just return null, which should make things explode. Okay, so should be class or interface name. All right, so this isn't generated now, I think is the issue. It's kind of a weird error though. Normally it says whatever, not found, but that's fine. Let's take the render statement and we'll turn it into a validate statement. And we'll change this to a validate statement. And I no longer need the view, I just need the data. And data should not be null anymore. So I'm not going to allow that. I'm just kind of hacking this together since it's already built out and tested. So let's bring this in. And hopefully now we get a different error. There we go. Null is not an instance of validate statement. Great. All right, let's drive this pretty quick here. I'm just going to copy this, and we will basically explode, or well, we're really just going to preg replace the statement with data. So let's just do that. Let's just preg replace a new validate statement. Whoops, lots of syntax craziness. Let's import that class and correctly parse statement here. Okay, so basically we're going to take statement directly. We're going to chop out all of the comma delimited stuff and turn those into the data that gets passed in. So pretty simple. One there, and we're passing. Great. Okay, let's make a commit for this, and I will push on to the generators. So let's do this. Git add -p. I don't want to add any of the validate stuff. I just like to make nice atomic commits. So we do want to change the with statement. That was part of our stuff there. And then this is a rather large chunk, so I can use S to split this up to smaller chunks. And again, I'm just after the syntax changes. So all these are syntax changes, but this is the new validate method. I want to put that in a separate commit. So I'm going to say no. Same here, no. Um, yes. Yes, these are all syntax changes, so I want those grouped with my syntax changes. And then no, I don't want the new test there. So let's see what I have left. So notice that I just have the README updates. I deleted the sample YAML file. That was old anyways and outdated. We updated the lexer and then the tests for Blueprint itself, the statement lexer, and then the README examples across the board. So the only changes that should be left, if I do a git diff-w, we should only see the new validate statement changes here, which is exactly what we see. Awesome. All right. So let's do a git commit -m update to key value syntax statement syntax. Cool. And then now we can do git add dot. We've already reviewed these. I'm not a big fan of git add dot, but since we already did that git add -p just a second ago, I'm comfortable with this. Let's just check this. Yeah, new test, new file, all good. Okay, so git commit -m add validate statement lexer. Or let's say this, lex validate statement. Boom. All right, let's go ahead and push that up. Git push origin head. I like this head. It's just a little shorthand to automatically say whatever branch I'm currently on. Git figures out the rest. It just gives me nice muscle memory no matter which branch I'm on. I never have to worry about doing that. I know some people, will argue, oh, well, you can do git push. You can, so long as the branches are tracked. So this is kind of universal, I guess is the point, and it's not that much to type, especially with tab completion. So all good. Okay, switch gears now. Let's make some generators. So we have some statements, and I think it'll probably be easiest, maybe actually not to start with the validate statement, just because there's going to be a lot of logic there. So let's get the ball rolling by starting with something maybe just a bit simpler, especially something that could be like copy and pasted like over and over and over again. And, I know copy paste is bad, but I live in the real world and it's okay to do that, I think. It's just what happens, so it's reality. So I think if we start with the event statement, this really takes an object and some data. And so does dispatch statement, and then so does mail statement, and then we can ultimately kind of get the validate statement because it takes something. Now it's going to have some nuances about building those rules. So again, I don't want to jump into that one because I'd like to get like breadth today instead of depth. So and then render's even pretty close. So, we can get 5 out of the 6 statements here by just kind of copying, pasting once we have like dispatch going. So let's just start at the top with dispatch because dispatch and event are pretty close to each other. In fact, dispatch is probably even less because an event could be a string or an object. So again, a little bit of logic there. So starting in just kind of alpha order, we can start with dispatch statement. So what I'd like to do is do a generator for jobs. Do like a job generator. And basically the job generator will look through the statements and say, oh, you're using some dispatch statements in your controllers. I'm going to go see if those like objects that you're, or job objects that you're trying to dispatch actually exist. And if not, I'm going to give you a stub for them and potentially use the data and so forth. So that's what we're going to do. Let's do that. So what I'm going to do is maybe make a subclass. I'm just going to go ahead and make one of these. We'll try to move a little faster from the TDD nano cycle. So let's mimic this directory structure again, and let's say something like new class, and we'll call this a job generator. So I don't really want to call it dispatch generator because that's not actually what it's generating. It's generating jobs. So let's call it this. And it will live here, and that should be good. And now we want to drive this out with a test. So let's go down to tests, features generator. Let's mimic that directory structure. So I'm just going to go new class, and we'll say statements. And I wish I could do something here where I could say statements. Can I edit this? I think I can. Yeah, there we go. So statements, and this will be job generator test. Cool. That should work. There we go. Good. So job generator test does all this, and something I've started adding to my tests was actually a little @C annotation, and this will be a job generator. So it's just kind of a nice little way that I can, inside my test, click this, and now I've got kind of test and implementation up both sides. Okay, so first things first, when we call the job generator, if there are no validate statements, it shouldn't do anything, right? So that's kind of the simplest test we could probably start with here. So let me just bring up another job generator because I do think there's a bit of setup in these. I mock out files and so forth. So again, we're going to copy paste this just for some speed. And then we're probably going to want to parse some stuff as well. So I think I have access to Blueprint here. Even though I'm testing these in a little bit of a unit level, like I have Blueprint, I kind of use Blueprint itself sometimes, and it just gives me, in my opinion, like there is some coupling, but I'm okay with that because it actually just tests Blueprint in kind of an integration way, like more and more and more. So I actually don't have a whole lot of tests for like Blueprint itself. You know, I test a couple of things pretty high level, but I'm not like testing it, you know, a whole lot with like a lot of different types of definitions or objects because these tests do that. So just a little tidbit there that I've kind of been doing. Okay, so this is not going to be a factory generator. This is going to be a job generator. Whoops, job generator. Let's fix that. And then let's call this a job generator. And to that point, I think we have outputting of nothing for an empty tree. So let's just say the same thing here. So output writes nothing for empty tree. We're going to get, let's see, we're going to get a factory stub. So I don't want that anymore. I'm going to want a job stub. And it's going to return the job stub contents. And it should not have put anything out. And in this case, I can just pass in controllers and give it nothing. And we're probably going to want to like mimic this test as well for when I actually like send it some statements for a controller, but there aren't any validate statements. So we'll do that here in just a sec. But this will get the ball rolling, I think. All right, let's do vendor. Where are you? Oh gosh, too far back. Vendor bin PHP unit. Okay, what did I miss here? Oh, it helps when we extend PHP unit test case. There we go. Now we're cooking. Okay, so test feature generator statements test generator. Let's just narrow our test down to that. And good, we got an exception. Registered generator must be an instance of contracts generator. Okay, so we made this thing, but it is not a generator. So let's generate that and add those method stubs. So again, this is going to push us along. And we're going to need to set this up as files. So let's initialize the fields. And thank you, PHP Storm. All right. Now we've got a stubs job stub not working for us. So let's see what's going on. Oh, got some comments here. Let me check them out. Assuming the statement class names are consistent, couldn't you not dynamically initiate the class instead of using a long old switch statement? Yeah, Ryan. I don't know if you came in a little late, but I did mention that I will probably do a little dynamic refactoring there that says, hey, based on the command name, does a method analyze command name exist? If so, psh, otherwise, you know, throw an exception basically. So I'll definitely do that refactor down the road. I think for now, you know, a lot of times I do things the simplest way to get the test rolling, and then I'll go back and refactor. And in my opinion, that's, the appropriate way to do it, right? Too often developers like over-engineer. They start getting a little off the testing path by kind of like assuming, oh, this is the way I want it to be, or this is the way it should be. So I like just kind of going slow, only writing the simplest thing, and then armed with a test, I can do a green-green refactor, meaning I'm not going to write any new tests. I'm only going to change the code. And ideally, when I'm done, if I did a successful refactor and only a refactor, then it should still be green. So, but yes, long story short, I will make that change. Cool. Okay, oops. I keep switching back to that. All right, where were we? We need a job. So inside here, we need a new file. This is going to be a job stub. Now, nothing's in here right now, which is probably okay. And we could push on. So let's do that. But then I'm going to switch out to a Laravel project and actually generate an empty job to get that stub going the way we want. So let's change this to return an empty array. And for now, everything's passing. Good. So let's keep going. What we'll do is we'll set this up yet again. You know what? That's kind of interesting that expects didn't. That actually should have failed because I never called the job stubs. That's interesting. You know what that is? I think we talked about this in really one of the early things. That is a PHP mockery integration issue. There we are. Okay, I talked about this in a tweet, and I know I also talked about it in an earlier thing, as well as in my testing course, Confident Laravel. Laravel actually does this for you underneath the covers, but when you're using mockery and PHP unit directly, mockery needs to have certain things get called at the end or during the teardown process to make sure that it behaves correctly. So for example, when you have a test that really only makes expectations through mocks and doesn't really do a lot of assertions, or in this case, runs successfully, but maybe didn't call one of your expectations, and you're not doing those proper teardown steps, mockery is not really going to behave the way you want. So in this case, I would have expected a failure because I expected it to load in that stub, but it didn't. I'm only returning here, but notice previously I was still passing. So some people override that teardown method and do like mockery close, but that's not all you have to do. So this is why I like using this trait, which I think was, to be fair, only recently introduced. But if we take a look at this, it basically adds those closing mockery teardowns, but it also, more importantly, does these mockery exceptions, where it basically increases the assertion count for PHP unit to make sure that all assertions passed. So this is some underneath the covers stuff that's happening here. But the point is, I wasn't using this trait, so I'm going to make a little note for myself to go back and test the original, or review my original test cases to make sure they're all using that trait. Okay, let's get back to business. So now we're getting a failure. We're not calling that get. So let's, again, just borrow from the factory generator. And let's go ahead and pull that in the way we would expect. So we'll say something here where we do all this stub, and let's just copy pasta this here for a sec. Okay, so we're going to do output, and we're going to return output, I assume. Great. And this will be for each controllers. We don't need to do this just yet, to be fair, so let's just comment that out. Okay, no matching handler found for mockery stubs factory stub. Good, that was the wrong stub because copy pasta. There we go, we're back to green now. Okay, so this is what we expect even though this has nothing in it. So let's write another test that actually is going to loop over these controllers and kind of force us to drive out some code where, like, if I just pass other things, it's going to limit that result. Now, I think, let's play this out for a second, but I think this test is probably honestly just maybe even a bit unnecessary. But let's do this. Writes nothing for tree without validate statements. Great. All right, cool. So what we want to do now is, I'm trying to think. This tree, I don't want to set up all this tree myself. That would be really, really, really annoying. So this is where Blueprint comes in handy. Let me bring up that factory generator test again and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So I think it would be nice is this here. We can actually pull out those tokens and kind of do the right thing. So let's change this. We should still get nothing, but we actually want to change this just a bit. So we're going to parse a we could really just parse anything else, to be honest, anything that doesn't have a validate statement. So I'm just going to make a no validate.bp file for now. And where did I bring in that definition? It's under definitions. Let's do definitions slash, is that right? Yeah, there we go. And let's just say no validate statements. Okay, so we're going to bring in this blueprint file. Why is fixture no good? Oh, you know what? I think I made a test case. I did. I just extended the wrong test case. So good discussion about this, but I'm actually picked up the wrong test case here. I just want to bring in my test case. So let's import ours, and that should give us everything we need. Cool. I was wondering when that fixture thing wasn't showing up correctly. This is a little helper I built to just figure out the right directory and so forth. Okay, back at it. So we're going to need this no validate statement, and we're going to need to pass in basically this tree. And again, we're using Blueprint here kind of as an integration test, if you will. We've already tested Blueprint parsing and analysis separately. So kind of at this point of the testing lifecycle, like I feel like these lower level tests, again, it's okay for me to kind of reach out and use that. It's giving me, in my opinion, some more robust coverage or some more depth to the coverage, right? It's covering not necessarily more things, but just more use cases. So I think, again, I think some people might have an issue with that, but I'm okay with it. I think it brings some value, and it gives me more confidence, which is what tests are all about to me. Okay, so let's run this, and we should definitely get some errors. We don't have this validate statements BP, so let's go make that. So let's go into stubs, or not stubs, fixtures, definitions, and let's copy this controllers only, and look at this. There's nothing in here, but this probably needs to be like some real definitions. So let me fix that. Let's do something like no validate statements, and let's make this be something kind of for real. So let's clean this up. Let's do index create, and we'll just do something like render, and this will be like user.index, and create will be like, we'll just make some simple render statements here. And we'll do something like user.create with, or no, wait, I'm just trying to make these a little bit real. So let's do with users. How about that? There we go. And then create doesn't get anything. And then we'll have this role controller, and we can do something here like, let's change this from index and maybe call it like destroy. And the action here might be something like delete, which we don't have one of those yet, but that shouldn't be a problem. And we'll say something like ID or user or something like that. And we'll do a redirect to role.index. Awesome. Cool. So this is no validate statements, but it is a legitimate, or at least will be legitimate, blueprint definition for some controllers. So let's kind of see this run, and it passes, which again, I talked about this a second ago. It passes because, you know, there's really nothing I'm doing in here yet. So anytime I have a test like this, it kind of demonstrates that like this test case is more or less unnecessary. Something else would drive this out, right? So for example, when I do go make a fixture that are validate statements, I could mix in other statements that aren't validate statements and kind of get the best of both worlds, right? So this test ultimately will probably just be removed, but it provides a good foundation for doing more. So let's do that. So output writes nothing, or let's see, output writes new jobs um, only, or something like that. Okay, so this is going to be like my main test. Um, or let's do this. Output writes new jobs. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'll write another test to make sure that it doesn't. Well, we'll see. We'll see what comes up. Sorry, thinking in my head like how much do I want this to test? I like to separate test cases out as much as possible, but sometimes for like these kind of fixture integration tests, it's nice to just have the full swap to kind of just do everything in one. So the point here is that maybe I have another test that I write where it's like public function, function, it only outputs new job, new jobs or something. So, and then this would be something like it writes, or it creates, or output writes jobs or something. So you can kind of see though that like because they're so close, like why not just do this all in one? But we'll see. We'll focus on writing new jobs for now. So let's change this to definitions validate statements. Let's go back and go ahead and create that. So I'm going to copy this and paste this and just call this validate statements. And instead, what we'll do is we'll say this, or sorry, job statements. Why did I start calling these validate? Did somebody catch me on that in the comments, please? Nope. Okay. All right. I'm crazy here. Let's do this. Let's rename this to, I don't know when I started thinking about validate. Dispatch statements. Yes, do the refactor. And let's change this to dispatch statements. Dispatch statements. Cool. Do refactor. Awesome. Thanks, PHP Storm. Okay, so now what we can do is we'll do the same little bit here, but maybe let's just focus on store and redirect here to user.show. And we can say something like with user.id. And here we'll say something like dispatch a job for like create user or something like that. And then we'll say with user. And here we'll do another role, destroys fine. We're going to delete the user and we'll say dispatch delete user with, and I guess we could pass user here. Whoops. With user. I'd kind of like to do one where it's like I'm not sending data just to demonstrate outputting that. So even though these both make sense, I think the delete user I won't do a with user, just so we get the best of both worlds. So I just want to get like all possible combinations here. So again, this is a really good example of like the controller lexer never really passed all the different variants here, right? And demonstrated lexing those. We kind of mocked that out. So again, I want to make sure that even though there's coverage for that for each loop that we saw, no point in me describing it. So even though there's coverage for this loop, we saw that we don't necessarily hit like every single lexer, right? We just confirm the wiring to the lexer. Now we have a separate test, a more unit style test for the lexer itself. But then we go back to having an integration test when we go in and test all these generators, because we basically need to generate that tree or parse that tree out. And so now we're kind of getting back to that integration all the way through. So some could argue that like I could do this at a really low level, but it would take, from a unit perspective, it would take a whole lot for me to generate this tree the way I want. So I'm getting all that coverage that some people, would say, oh, well, with that kind of spell checking approach or that unit test approach where I was kind of checking line by line that I called, um, back here in the controller that I called this add method, calls new statements or whatever. The lexer on that, like I get the best of both worlds. So all I need to do is confirm this linkage, and I'm still going to get all the cool integration-y tests from the statement lexer as well as these tests. So again, just kind of demonstrating how this all comes together. I think in isolation, again, some might argue with those individual approaches, but it's about the test suite as a whole, right? It's not about the individual test, or at least I don't care about those so much. Again, it's all about confidence for me. So the combination of the way I'm testing these different things gives me full confidence in this. So I don't get too caught up in like the dogmas. All right, let's get back to this job generator test. Let's kind of just see where we are because I've forgotten. Test did not perform any assertions. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to do this mark test is incomplete. Do I want to write this? All right, cool. So everything's passing minus that incomplete test, which is kind of interesting because we want to start writing jobs. So we have this dispatch statement now. Let's start making it do more. So what I expect here is a created, and I would expect it to create app jobs. And in this case, let's bring up that, what was that file? Dispatch statements. So I want to see it do a create user job.php as well as a app jobs delete user.php. Okay, so I want to see it do this, and yeah, let's see where this gets us. Cool. Okay, so we got nothing back, right? We expected this created, whoops, sorry. Let's make that a proper array. There we go. So we should get back a created array of the file names of the things we created. That's kind of how the output works. So I don't think I did that in a live stream. Let me just demonstrate that. So basically when we call generate on all the different registries, we get back some generated, like this generated array. And it's basically like created, deleted, updated, all these different things that eventually Blueprint will do. And I just kind of loop over those in a nice little collection pipeline here, and basically, caps that created bit, and then each of the files inside of it just come out as little bullet points here. So pretty straightforward. So that's what I'm expecting back from this, and in this case I expect both those to be created. So the simplest thing that can possibly make this work would be to now start looping over these, and I'm going to get a controller. So let's change this to a controller, and basically if the controller, then I would also want to loop over, its statements. So that's kind of ugly. So let's just do this the ugly way, and we'll say controllers methods as method, and then a method's gonna have statements. Oh god, this is gross. And then statements, I really want to loop over those. So yeah, this is nasty. But let's stick with it. Statements as statement, and basically, if the statement is an instance of or not an instance of a validate statement, then I will continue. Cool. So basically, if not, and then otherwise, let's just do this for now. Let's just echo statements or statement data or print r statement data. Oh, you all, look at this. Where are you all on this? Var dump. I cannot type right now. There we go. It's not a validate statement. I don't know why I keep doing that. Dispatch statement. Great. All right, let's see where we are here. Okay, we still get a failure, and it didn't var dump anything. That's kind of interesting. Why didn't you var dump anything? All right, let's see how far we're getting. We're getting in the tree. We're going through controllers. Let's just make sure we're getting where we think we're getting. So let's echo controller name PHP end of line. And let's just poor man's debugging here. And let's do something like echo the method. Okay, something's wrong. Something's wrong with this. We're not getting as far as we want to get. So let's bring it over here and make sure we're doing tokens. All right, so tokens is picking up dispatch. All right, let's check out the tree then instead. All right, the tree's got nothing in it. Something's wrong with the tree. Something's wrong with the analysis of the tree. That's strange. Okay, so this is a good example of the fact that the analyzer's not working the way we want. So even though we have that controller lexer, this is a prime example of something is not linked up by the time we go all the way back. Oh, you know what it is? I know what it is. Let's go back to Blueprint. We never register the controller lexer. Yes, we only have the model lexer. There it is. I think I said this in one of the earlier bits. I said I'm going to leave this alone because it's going to cause a failure later and drive me out to testing that. And there we have it. So, actually, I don't think I do. I still need the test for this. That's not where that should go. It should go in the setup for the job generator. Here we go. It should get a controller lexer, and the controller lexer needs a statement lexer. So we're just going to pass it a new statement lexer. And that, what are we missing here? You should get a statement lexer. What's wrong with you? Register lexer, controller lexer, expected blueprint contracts lexer, got blueprint contracts controller lexer, implements lexer. There we go. So good, found some bugs here. Okay, now we're getting destroy is a dispatch. Cool, okay. And now we're getting user, store, user, destroy. And we're not getting any farther than that. So let's clear out this. Where are we? Ooh, we're getting close to an hour. Let's see if I can get to where I need to go here. So we'll go to an hour. I think we're close. Just ran into a couple untested areas. Okay, so user, store, role, destroy. Good. And then why isn't it getting down here? So let's have it loop over these statements. And this is just, I'll just output the statement itself. So it is an array. Okay, it's getting down to role. Why would it be called role? Oh, that's the controller name. All right, it is getting down to the array. So I want statement. Object of class blueprint could not be converted to a string. That's fine. Let's var dump it instead. Var dump. And let's say Okay, we definitely have a dispatch statement. Why aren't you getting down here, my little friend? Oh, statements. Jerk. There we go. Let's take this off. Statements. Okay, there we go. Created user, deleted user. All right. Nasty, nasty typing. Okay, so now here we would want to do something. I'm going to pseudocode this out in the interest of time, and then I think I might cut this a bit. Go ahead and cut it off since we're at the hour mark. But basically what we're going to do here is say if if job exists, we're just going to skip or continue, right? And then else, we're going to generate a job. And so just for some speediness, I'm going to jump ahead and then backfill these tests. So let me jump out to this factory generator and let me kind of demonstrate what we're ultimately going to have this look like. So we're going to get the path based on the job name. So we're going to say statement job. We're going to get the job name, get the path, and then we're going to output the path based on populate stub with the statement. And this is really the job in this case. So let me bring these two over and we'll kind of fill this in and make this look a little prettier. So let me copy this and bring these down here. And instead, this will be called app jobs, and this will be the job name, and this is going to be a string of the name. Whoops. Name. Cool. And we don't need any of the rest of that. We just need PHP. So basically, that'll make a app jobs of the name of the job that you said. And then populate stub is going to get the dispatch statement. And let's rename this to dispatch statement. This should really be just called job. Well, no, it is a dispatch statement. Let's keep the name dispatch statement. Okay, cool. So you get a dispatch statement, and it has a job, and that's all fine. So we're going to replace the dummy class with that. The namespace should be replaced with jobs, and then the definition of that job should probably be changed based on the data that's being passed in. So this really won't be called build definition. It'll probably be called build constructor. Or build properties. How about that? Build properties. And I'm going to replace properties with whatever this gets generated as. Great. And then I'm going to return the stub. So this is left to do, but this is where the magic's going to happen. So this is basically going to take the dispatch statement, and it's going to loop over data and build the proper, or build the fields and inject them into constructor. The constructor. There we go. So that's basically what this is going to do. So just to get all that on one line. So that's what I'm going to do, I think, after this. And then once we have this, as I mentioned earlier, we knew these were going to be really, really dense, which is kind of why I started with the easiest one. It's going to be very easy, though, to basically copy this, turn this into events, and be done with it. So, and from there, I'm going to really be able to cook pretty quickly with all the other things to generate. So I think I'll probably work on that tonight. I'm going to finish this one out and basically copy it to all the other ones. And we'll pick up tomorrow with another thing to generate. So if you have any questions, go ahead and shoot them across. I'm going to get a quick drink and just kind of see where the test lands on this. So let's just kind of see how much is broken. So mockery put does not exist on this mock object. So again, I'm in a good place. We need to kind of set up an expectation here that I'm going to be putting out those files. So this is where I would just say something just real quick while some questions are coming across. I should get, this should be like app jobs create user.php, and it should basically get the fixture. I'm not sure why I'm not calling fixed. Oh, stubs comes from somewhere else. So this should give me back the result of the fixture for, I'll make a jobs controller here, or jobs folder. So we'll say jobs, and we'll say something like create user.php. And we'll set that up here in just a sec. So it should get that, and it doesn't return anything here, I don't think. And we'll do the same thing for that delete bit. Do I set this up more? No. I guess I'm using like a lowercase convention here. I'm not sure why, but I'm going to stick with it. Jobs, and then this will be delete user, and this will be delete user. So those should ultimately get called. We don't have those stubs now. So what I'm going to do, just to kind of wrap up here, is basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go generate the template stub, and then I need to create the I guess generated resulting fixtures, and then at that point, that once I have those, I'll just fill in the blanks here, and that'll be everything for this. And then it's copy paste to events, mailable, render, and then we'll do validate together tomorrow, because I think that'll be a really good one to do together. So with that, thanks everybody for watching. Let me check the comments here. Okay. Looks like we're all good. Yeah, everybody got your, or at least said never mind. So I guess we got caught up on whatever I was missing. So thanks again for everybody continuing to watch the live streams. I will do this again tomorrow, same time, same place. See you.